journalist Carl Bernstein, who in addition to being a legendary investigative reporter and author is also the legendary other half of Woodward and Bernstein, also CNN's Abby Phillip. Gloria, the president's justification downplaying the virus didn't want to create panic, fear, and he added today the last thing he wants to do is show fear. Fear is the Trump campaign strategy. I mean, that is he told Woodward himself for the last book that real power is fear. That was the title of the last book.
Yeah, and he's running on fear in this campaign, talking about the mobs in major urban areas, trying to tell people.
So provoking fear and stirring fear is fine when it suits his ends.
Well, of course, totally. And I don't buy the argument, I didn't want to create panic. This is a president. It was very revealing to me today when he had his little press conference and he said, leadership is about confidence. And what he really meant, I think, if you read between the lines, is he didn't want to appear to be weak. The worst thing you could tell Donald Trump is you're weak. And he didn't want blame, because what he was thinking about was, they're going to blame me, and I've got to get reelected, and I don't want to shut down the economy, and I don't want to do the things that perhaps science is telling me that I ought to do. So I'm going to look like I'm in control, even though it could cost people lives. I mean, it is transactional to the nth degree, and it is outrageous for a president of the United States who, as Jamie was saying before, says he wants to keep the country safe and prosperous, but you can't keep the country prosperous unless you keep the country safe. And that is what he totally abdicated his responsibility here.
Carl, certainly a lot of people wondered why the president talks about Woodward. Woodward had already come out with a book that the White House, quibbled with, and yet, I guess some within the White House suggested the president shouldn't do it. Are you surprised that Woodward got the president to commit to 18 on the record interviews? And what do you make of the significance of what we heard so far?
I'm not surprised, because Trump regretted not talking to Woodward, or he said he regretted not talking to Bob after the last book. And Trump is always thinking that he can charm anyone. Well, he's not going to charm Bob Woodward. He's not going to charm a great reporter who is going to go and check everything out, and who is going to talk to dozens and dozens of the president's aides and find out what the real truth is. But let's just take a deep breath here about what we just heard on those tapes. These are the ultimate smoking gun tapes in our history. We have listened to the President of the United States commit probably the greatest felony by any president in our history. He sits there in real time talking and covering up his absolute dereliction, in which he ignores the national security of the United States, ignores the health and safety of the people of this country, in which he knowingly covers up what can cause tens of thousands of deaths. There's never been a stunning moment captured on tape by a leader. These aren't the Watergate tapes. This is something we've never had in our history. We've never had a president with this kind of attitude about the health and safety of the American people, willing for his own re-election efforts to just throw away lives. This is the ultimate felony by a president of the United States.
Abby, it's an interesting, what Carl said is interesting. If you think about if this had been a foreign invasion coming, if, as the president had said it was, if this had been a hurricane coming, and the president had said, at the time to Bob Woodward, well, I don't want to panic anybody about this hurricane, so I'm just going to say it's a Category 1 or a tropical storm and not really, has the potential to really grow. No, we don't do that. People are informed about what the potential is, and people, again, rise to the occasion. Do you think it makes any difference? I mean, so many times the president's faced controversy without real political consequences. Do you think it's going to be any different this time?
Well, Anderson, as you're saying that, the sad part about what you just said is that we've actually had an example of the president trying to, literally Sharpie his way into a different version of a hurricane map. And this is a real thing that has actually happened, where the president creates his own reality, the one that he thinks fits his re-election prospects or his political prospects best. And this is just another version of that, involving the coronavirus, the consequences of which 190,000 people have lost their lives. But as far as whether this matters, I mean, speaking to people around the president's campaign, in his campaign, they kind of basically chalk this up to another bad news cycle, one of many, by the way, that he's had in several weeks, and that after a couple of days, a couple of weeks, this is going to all blow away. This is the pattern that they are used to since going back to 2016, that there is a cycle of controversy and the president is able to either write it out or another controversy comes their way. What's different, though, about this is that this is a crisis that is going to be with the American people for a long time. This is a once in a 100-year event for this country. It will be written about in the history books. Indeed, this is the first version of the history books, and I don't think that it's something that's just going to blow away. This is what the election is going to be about, and I think this one really is going to stick.
Gloria, President Trump had two campaign events yesterday, bringing together hundreds of people without masks, not social distancing. We know he holds rallies, he loves them, he feels like that was part of why he won in 2016. I don't know if that's an excuse or he just really loves to perform and, be able to tell the same stories he's told before and have people laugh. Do you think that's something in the light of what he said on the Woodward tape that, well, of course, I'm not even going to ask this question, will he continue to do it? Of course he's going to continue to do it. Because he has no other...
Yes. He's going to, look, don't forget, Anderson, this is a president who even recently, maybe it was last week, was retweeting conspiracy theories about the death toll from coronavirus,
right,
that it really wasn't as large as it is. So what's stunning is that I think in some bizarre way he was trying to impress Bob Woodward with what he knew, but by doing that, he set himself up because it's very easy if you go over the timeline, as you've been doing and Jamie's been doing, that he was saying one thing to Bob Woodward to tell him, oh, I know all this stuff, and on the other hand, lying to the American public, lying to the public and saying, oh, it's just the flu, it's nothing else, and it's so striking because of course he will continue it. Whether it'll make a difference in the election, we don't know at this point, but this is people's lives and their livelihoods here that he's playing with, and I think it may be accepted differently by the American public.
Carl, when former FBI Director Comey, James Comey, was testifying before the Senate Intelligence Committee back in 2017, he was asked about Trump's tweet suggesting that Comey should hope there aren't tapes of their conversations. Comey responded saying, oh lordy, I hope there are tapes. The Woodward book and tapes don't give the president much room to deny anything. I mean, he's now sort of reshaping this as though he just didn't want to have panic. Do you think he's going to, what do you think he's going to do in the short term to get through this news cycle?
I don't know, he's going to be on Hannity at 9 o'clock tonight, so that's his usual default, is to go over to Fox News and spin out something. But I think this time we are also talking about something that is shocking even to Republicans in Congress. What happened with Richard Nixon was that finally the Republican leadership, after hearing the smoking gun tapes, went down to the White House, marched down to the White House, including Barry Goldwater, the 1964 nominee of his party to be president, and told the president he must resign because of the crimes he had committed. I'm not going to suggest the Republicans are about to do that now.
I don't see Lindsey Graham do that.
No, but they have to confront this because this is something unique that no president has allowed the loss of life for his own narrow purposes as what we have here. I mean, the other element of this that we always have to consider, what would a competent, real leader have done, honest leader in this instance? A few days, he gets this information, the State of the Union address is a few days off. What would Roosevelt have done? He would have gone before the Congress and said, we have a national emergency. We must come together as a people, fight this national emergency, take the steps for open welfare. Instead, we have the most devastating cover-up. Happily, it's recorded, this cover-up, on these devastating tapes.
From Bernstein, Epi Phillip, Gordon Borger, thank you. Jimmy Dan Galen and Gloria are going to come back.